Thank you, Claire. And yes, absolutely delighted to be a part of the directorate that hosts Active Cumbria. It's actually undoubtedly one of the finest, most forward-thinking and most progressive and can-do teams it's ever been my pleasure to work with. So thank you, Claire. So good afternoon, everybody. Have you all had a good day? Yes. That's what I like to hear. I was gutted I couldn't make this morning, but I've managed to sit through the workshops this afternoon. It's been fantastic to see so many really good speakers. And it's so good to see so many of you still here today. I think we had about 170 signed up, maybe about 140 actually made it, which is an incredible commitment to this really important agenda. And the speakers that you had this morning set you some really interesting challenges and also a bit of positivity. I know that you got a really good, sober assessment of the scale of the challenge that's facing us around physical activity and older people, but also some really good evidence-based descriptions about what sort of things we can do about it and why physical activity matters. And I think all of the speakers managed to give a bit of a sense of positivity and optimism, and saying that while aging is of course inevitable, decline during aging absolutely can be reduced and significantly delayed, and we can really help people to live longer for better. So I think my slot on this agenda is down as something like the importance of activity in an aging population. But frankly, if you're all still sitting here and you've been paying attention, you probably know that. And if you've not been paying attention, you're probably not going to listen to me either. So I'm not really going to spend a lot of time, you'll be glad to know, going through all the kind of statistics and setting out that agenda again. I'm not going to sort of use the slot to make the case, because I think it can be summarised really quickly and easily. Our population is ageing, with much higher proportions of people living in older age groups, and this is projected to continue over the next several years. That's one of the great triumphs of society. The fact that we've got such better living conditions and such good health and care services means that more people are living longer lives than at any point in history, and that is absolutely something to be celebrated. But it does bring with it some very substantial challenges. The number of older people leaving the workforce is rising, the number of people needing care is rising, and the capacity and the resource to provide that is increasingly stretched. And when we hear headlines about the NHS being in crisis, this is really fundamentally what we're talking about. And that also underpins the narrative about there being some sort of pensions time bomb, where we've got an increasing pensions bill because of the number of older people going up, and the number of younger people actually working and earning the money to pay the tax to pay that bill going down, leading to a situation where the social security system becomes unaffordable. And there's an extent to which that demographic shift also helps to drive some of the political challenges that we see in the country at the moment around things like immigration. And these challenges are very, very real. We can't carry on as we are. I think to use one of the slogans for the conference, if we keep on doing what we've always done, we'll keep on getting what we've always got. But what we've got does not mean an inexorable slide into individual and social decline. What we need is a radical rethink on what we think about aging and age. For far too long, older people have been seen as a problem, as a burden on society. And policy has kind of reflected all of that. But the same things that lead to people living longer lives have also extended the healthy life that people can experience. And that means that people can be part of the solution for longer as well. Older people have got a vast array of skills, knowledge, and experience that can add real value to the economy. And I'm glad to say that these things are starting to be seen and recognised. I remember very well when I started off my career looking at the results of the census back in 2001. And there was a whole series of questions which you were asked to skip if you were over 75. So you got things like, what's people's maximum education level? It was no qualifications, basic qualification, higher qualifications, university, postgraduate, over 75. As if nothing that you'd done mattered at that point. But I'm glad to say that some of that sort of narrative is shifting. We need to shape that society and a system that values our older people, that keeps them as healthy as possible, for as long as possible, and that enables them to be net contributors to that society for as long as they can. And of course, as you all know very well, physical activity is an absolutely critical component of that, particularly for its role in maintaining muscle mass and reducing frailty. And in many ways, the importance of physical activity in an aging society is exactly that. There is one area that I just want to do a little bit of reflection on rather than rehearsing all the existing data that I know some others have reflected on this morning, because it's something that's kind of new in the system, and it's something that I don't think we've started to grasp at all what its implications might be. And that's about the impact of the new generation of weight loss drugs that are coming through. I'm seeing some nods already that people are thinking about this. It's a broad challenge for public health, but it's very relevant to this agenda. Because as I'm sure you know, we've got this new generation of weight loss drugs, GLP-1 agonists, things like Ozempic, Wegovy. And it's massively shaken up the world of weight management. And frankly, it's thrown public health into a little bit of a tailspin as to whether we approve of this or not. We can be quite a moralistic lot, and if something makes life easier, we think it's cheating, and you probably shouldn't be doing it. I'll not get into what you might call, I'm sure the Chief Medical Officer would call the theological public health arguments about all of this. But what it's reminding me of is where we were a few years ago with vaping. And my worry is that if we don't start thinking positively about it now, we'll end up in a few years' time where we are now with vaping, i.e. something that has the potential to be massively helpful and a really useful tool, could have some massively unintended consequences. And the one that's most relevant for us today is that we know that when people lose weight with these drugs, which can be a really good thing, and for physical activity can be very, very helpful, they lose some of that weight, a fairly substantial proportion of it, from muscle mass, not from fat mass. So I'm really concerned that as people start to do more and more of this use of these drugs, without also taking part in a program of resistance training to help build that strength and that muscle mass, then we're actually setting ourselves up for an increase in frailty over the coming years. And unfortunately, just as we were with vapes, we're in a bit of a Wild West situation with these at the moment. Yes, you can get them on the NHS, but not very many people can get them on the NHS, and lots of people are just buying them online with no control or support. And we've really got no sort of concept, I think, as to what that's going to mean in the long term or how we're going to respond to it, other than to say, we know we're going to need help, we're going to need support to help people take up those physical activity opportunities, particularly around strength building, as they do that and as they use these drugs. So any suggestions anybody has, please get in touch. I'm really up for all offers. But just to park that particular issue for now, I said that your speakers this morning had all managed to get a bit of an optimistic note into the speeches, even through the challenging stats, and that's where I want to finish today off. Because I was at the launch event for Live Longer Better back in November 2022. It was a bit more than a gleam in Claire's eye at that point, wasn't it, Claire? But it was the launch event. It didn't really exist. And now look at it. It's been absolutely phenomenal to see its progress. That potential was there back in 2022. You could feel it, couldn't you? You could feel it in the air. There was a real buzz about the place. And I could not be more pleased to see the shift that's happened and the way that's grown over the last couple of years. It's achieving shifts in attitudes as well as improving outcomes for individuals. And that's absolutely what we need to be doing. I said earlier that we need to shape a society and a system that values older people and keeps them as healthy as possible. But we are that system. We are that society. And of course, We'd all love loads more money to come flowing into the system to help us do more. And there might be some of that over the coming years, but loads is not coming anytime soon. But what this programme has shown is quite how much we can do with not very much. We've got the power through our daily interactions with people to drive the prevention agenda and to support people to be more active more often. We can do some of that by changing our approach, by tackling some of the entrenched attitudes to ageing that see decline as being inevitable, and that to some extent pander to that. And I really enjoyed sitting through Bex's workshop, where that sort of use of language and the things that we can do that's either pander to it or challenge it, it's all unconscious stuff some of the time. And we can change some of those things because we can encourage or discourage activity by the way we work. And not only can we do that work of tackling things and encouraging people to be more active, we must, because it's all of our futures as well. Which also means that we can and must model that behaviour. To use another of these great inspirational quotes, we have to be the change that we want to see in the world. And you are being that change. Thank you again to all of you for being invested in this agenda and for being part of the movement that it's become. It really is essential to the future. And almost finally, just before I wrap up, I want to say a particular thank you to Claire for her outstanding leadership on this agenda and for organising today so well. There's an enormous amount of work goes into organising these events, as you know, and Claire and the wider Live Longer Better and Active Cumbria team have done an absolutely superb job. So can we all just give them a show of thanks in the usual way. Now, when I spoke at the Live Longer Better launch back in 2022, I closed by quoting Dylan Thomas. And at the risk of being really boring and repetitive, I'm going to do it again because I love it. And while Dylan Thomas was talking in this to somebody much closer to death than perhaps the groups of people that we're tending to work with, the first stanza absolutely sums up this change in attitude that we need away from surrendering to an inevitable decline. He wrote, "Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light." Thank you for helping people burn and rave. Let's do more of it. Thank you.